Hello, my name is Thomas Moore. Like most hormonal teenagers suffering from a sense of undefined status, increased decision making and social pressures, I turned to lifting weights as a coping strategy. This decision to lift heavy things up and put them down was in part influenced by, very muscular men that seemed to assert their dominance through their sheer size. My assumption, as erroneous as it may be, led me to correlate mass with respect. So I took my slightly toxic mindset, accompanied with my fascination of Charlie Bronson, and off I trotted to the local gymnasium.
And it's here at this very gym in West Wickham that I first began to start lifting weights. I picked up a bodybuilding magazine, followed an arbitrary bulking diet plan and got to work. Unfortunately, I didn't turn into Jay Cutler that was promised and looked like this.
Now, could you call that particular phase intuitive? Probably not. I had set meals at set times with the main goal to get as big as possible. It wasn't until late 2012 when I first met Luke Johnson at Lewisham College where I was introduced to macro and calorie tracking. In particular, the formulations and calculations in order to understand what foods we should be eating was also very new to me. So over the last 9-10 years, I've been pretty much macro tracking. And then I was first introduced to the idea of intuitive eating this year. And, this is my reaction.
But surely the biggest downfall of intuitive eating is that you're going to overeat.
It's a very valid point, and one some critics express concern with. Now, I couldn't find much research that involves IE and overeating or IE and weight loss, as ultimately the goal of intuitive eating is to essentially enjoy a balanced approach without the emphasis of one's weight. There was, however, a 2006 study by Smith and Hawkes that saw, contrary to the expectation of critics, it saw students scoring high on the Hawkes intuitive eating scale, ate a more diverse diet, and had a lower body mass index. A 2019 study by Tilger et al. Found that preliminary research indicates that intuitive eating is associated with weight stability, which may be an important determinant of health. There's a segment from this book that I can really relate to, and it's from a 2017 study that found intuitive eaters had more body appreciation and interoceptive responsiveness. So at the beginning of September of this year, I had a goal of trying to, as best as possible, achieve my Marbella physique. The second time I went, I wasn't out of this world shredded, but I was lean, and at the time I thought I was happy. So I transferred my newly found skills of intuitive eating over to this dieting phase, and within 4 to 5 weeks achieved my goal weight of 90 kilos. I woke up every morning, looked at my physique, understood that I was nowhere near as conditioned as I was in Marbella, but there was one striking difference, and that was, I was happy with the way I looked. So what we're going to do over the next couple of days is give you a little insight into how I intuitively eat. The time is now 7:42 on a Saturday. Most mornings I wake up about 5:30, 6 o'clock, have a cup of coffee, do a couple hours work, have my pre-workout and train fasted. Training fast is something that I've been doing for quite a long time now, and it's something that I enjoy very much. So just so that I can give you an insight into what scale weight is doing, I weighed in this morning, I think at about 91.4 kilos. So we'll weigh in today, Sunday and Monday after a few days of intuitive eating. We'll wrap up with a few questions, and then I'll give you my thoughts, pros and cons on intuitive eating. Vive asked the questions. You saw their weight this morning, 90.4. So like a kilo drop overnight. Intuitive eating and dropping a kilo overnight. Right, let's jump straight in with some questions. Very similar setup. Let's do the productivity video. If you haven't seen that, then the card will be above. We'll start with question number 1 from Owen Gleeson. Is that how you spell it? Eon? It is Owen, isn't it? It's like Yogan, but like I spelled Owen, like the cricketer. Do you find that you struggle with accountability when intuitively eating? I do a little bit, yeah. I feel like the lax approach to nutrition when intuitively eating filters in a little bit to my sort of day-to-day routine in terms of optimizing like health supplementation and sleep. I find that I have to make a conscious effort to ensure that I'm doing those things. And I think someone asked a very good question about performance, so I'll discuss that shortly. Connor Jubert, would you agree that everyone should track for a bit, then turn to intuitive eating? I think this is a fantastic question, and I believe everyone should. I think the biggest issue when it comes down to intuitive eating is that it's all very well and good, the idea and the concept on paper, kind of emotionally eating when we're hungry. But I think if you were to give just a Gen Pop client the ability to freely or emotionally eat with no understanding of macronutrient value when it comes down to like carbs, protein and fats, I think you're going to find yourself in a bit of a tricky situation. If you're an individual that doesn't really have much understanding of, say, let's take fat, 1 gram of fat contains 9 calories. If you're hungry and sit down and start snacking on loads of nuts, before you know it, why am I such a child? Before you know it, you've done about 2,000 calories. So I definitely think one of the biggest caveats to intuitive eating is that this lack of knowledge with regard to nutrition in general is going to be a big issue. So I'd 100% recommend that those who want to intuitively eat should have some basic form of, not even macro, maybe just calorie tracking, starting on MyFitnessPal. Jack_Kettles, Ketless? No one wants to be Ketless. Best tips for fasting through morning/mid-afternoon to save calories for the evening. It sounds like you're having one meal and then looking to kind of fast a little longer. If you are having one meal, if that's a setup anyway, then that first meal of the day should be high protein, high fiber, because that will sustain your appetite for a good while. And then when you get to that period whereby you're like, well, I'm a little bit hungry, something like a smoothie, like yesterday when I had 50 grams of blueberries, almond milk and a scoop of whey protein, that sorted my appetite out. Even things like this, like coffee and milk, you could have just rely on like flavoured waters, for example. Fizzy usually gives me, when I'm on prep as well, fizzy waters gives me that feeling of being full. Again, from a supplementation standpoint, you could look at some sort of fibre supplement. You could look at 5-HTP, 200 mega 5-HTP with like a coffee at that mid-morning will be a good idea. Or if you just wanted to have some food at lunch, just go for like protein, no carbs or minimal carbs, protein and minimal fat. Just have a chicken salad, for example, and just go heavy on the salad, because volume is key. Mikey Lepre, do you think knowledge of portion control is necessary to intuitively eat? Absolutely. And as I referenced the nuts or high fatty foods, if you have no understanding that, take a bag of nuts, for example, you empty that into a bowl and you had the whole bowl, and you've got no understanding of portion sizes or portion control, you're going to steam through about 2,000 calories. You need to be in a position of education whereby you understand that I should only be having a handful of nuts, or I should only be having like a decent amount size peanut butter when I take it out. And this is where I think it's a good idea to start to weigh your foods to get an understanding of their caloric intake before you intuitively eat, because then it just comes as second nature. Otherwise, you're taking like lumps of peanut butter and put it on the toast, when really you should just take a little bit, spread it, shoot for, in your mind, 20 grams of peanut butter for me is like 10 grams of fat. Okay, do you know what I mean? So, and what happens is you start to generate and you start to increase the knowledge of certain foods and portion sizes and control to give you the ability to properly intuitively eat. But to answer your question, absolutely, mate, portion control and understanding of foods, linking it back to the first question, is key. J Thomas 114. Do you find your gym performances up and down when intuitively eating? Fantastic questions, these guys. Well done, the TM Cyclers. I said it before, I say it again. You're a fine bunch. Do I find my gym performances up and down? So when I intuitively eat, I tend to, from a training like perspective, I mirror intuitively eating with just maintenance phases, whereby when I'm intuitively eating, so if I've got into shape for summer and we've got like a 4 to 6 week window in summer, all I'm doing is getting into the gym, applying a set amount of sets and stimulus to my body and to my muscles throughout the week, and I'm not really tracking. I'm not really looking at my logbook. I'm not trying to beat this or beat that. So the only time when I really intuitively eat, I'm in a maintenance phase, because I've found in the past when I'm not being so on it with nutrition, and I'm trying to get the most out of training, it can be affected a little bit. Because if you were to intuitively eat and take yesterday, for example, maybe not a lot of calories were consumed, and you go into like today, a big deadlift session, you might have pulled 200 key last week because your day before intake was a high amount of food. And then this week, if you pull that food down a little bit, then your performance could be affected. So I definitely do find it is affected, but I only intuitively eat in like summer or like in, you know, what's coming up now in December, for example. Meg Jackson, do you weigh anything still when you intuitively eat? When you eat intuitively? Sorry. Yes and no. It's very minimal. Like even with that shake yesterday, if I was on prep, I'd be weighing my almond milk. But yesterday, just chucked it in. I've got a good eye for like, right, that's when to stop. Handful of blueberries, scoop away. So I'm not really being too anal when it comes down to weighing. There are some things that I'd weigh when I'm intuitively eating. I'd say probably like I don't know. I don't think I do, you know. I just have a good understanding of food, really. So, no, I don't. No. Lil Kid, XOXO. That sounds like an American mumble rap artist. I can envisage rainbow coloured hair and multiple chains on. You don't possess those traits. Fantastic. After tracking for so long, is it ever truly intuitive again? I still struggle and track in my head. There's nothing wrong. That is essentially intuitive eating, though. I wouldn't associate you tracking things in your head as it being a negative. That's what I'm doing now when I intuitively eat. I'm going, right, I only need that amount. You know, I'm in the position whereby for the last 10 years I've been tracking. When I first started to intuitively eat and try to get my head around it, it did freak me out a little bit. I was like, God, this is a bit alien to me. But I think what's nice about intuitive eating for like us lot, when I say us lot, I mean kind of gym bods, is a sense that we can kind of dip our toe in and out. You know, if you intuitively eat for 3 or 4 weeks and are comfortable with it and then find that you're like, I might start tracking again, then start tracking again. There's no good or bad when it comes down to nutrition. Like we shouldn't just, I think when I was reading that book, it almost felt a little cult-like. Like everyone must intuitively eat. And I think this association that tracking foods is somehow bad. I don't think it's bad at all. Obviously everyone's entitled to their own opinion and I respect that, but I don't think you weighing foods or you following MyFitnessPal is necessarily a bad thing if psychologically, you know, you're achieving your goals and you're getting on with day-to-day life and your life isn't becoming affected. So don't associate intuitive eating with like your, you know, like I said, as a negative. I think it's perfectly fine. If you feel at any point that you want to start tracking again, then start tracking. If not, then happy days. Lil Kid. Last question, and we'll end with a good one from AK Kilk. Steps to intuitive eating after a vicious cycle of cutting / following macros to a T. So this is like me post show, right? I started dieting in January time, had the shows in July, went away on holiday a couple of times to Marbella, and was almost uncomfortable. I was like, oh, I need to have some structure. I think one of the best things to do from macro tracking would be to like protein semi-track or like protein and calories. So you go from tracking protein, fats and carbs to just doing protein and calories. See how you get on with that. And then you just start to, you could even drop even further and just go to calories and then go to intuitive eating. Or I think the transition from protein and calories to intuitive eating is probably quite easy. It's something that I do. It's something that I've done during this Santa Shred, is just set myself 2,400 calories for the day, shoot for my 220 protein, and then the rest of the calories from the day can be consumed from either higher fat, low carb, higher carb, low fat, for example. And then what that does is that gives you the ability to start to understand. So it's got a little bit dark. Start to understand more about, it's changed colour completely. It's a problem with automatic white balance. I do apologise. It starts to, you then start to be comfortable with the idea of a variation from day to day of different macronutrients. So I definitely say if you've been very strict from a contest prep and transfer, or want to transfer into intuitive eating, not go cold turkey is probably not the right Well, it almost is, because you're completely detaching from macro tracking. But I'd go to tracking protein, ensuring you're getting in your 180, 200, 220 per day, and then make the rest up with calories. And then when you feel comfortable enough to go, right, I'm now going to try intuitive eating, make that jump. Okay, thank you for the questions, you lot. Let's crack on with Sunday's day of intuitive eating, and then tomorrow we'll weigh in and we'll end the video. Okay, there's my video on intuitive eating. I'll finally leave you with my thoughts on the topic. I feel like as a society nowadays, we like to clinicize everything and stamp a label on things. Take intuitive eating. Essentially, it's just eating like a normal person. Do I feel like intuitive eating has its place with performance athletes? Probably not. If you're looking to maximize and get the most out of a bulking or cutting cycle or a contest prep, as an example, having an understanding and being able to control your variables through a macro or diet plan is probably going to be more advantageous. For Gen Pop clients, I think it's fantastic. Again, I do believe more education needs to be created on the macronutrient value of certain foods, an understanding of portion control before you can fully jump into intuitive eating as a whole. I'll leave you with my weight. We started this process at about 91.4 kilos, and my weight this morning was around about 90.1. So quite a big deduction over the last 2 to 3 days intuitively eating. Is that good weight? Is that bad weight? Who knows? A lot of it could be water, a lot of it could be muscle, and maybe a little fat, which I, again, make the point that from a performance aspect, I think we should be sticking to some form of regimented macro or diet plan. Any questions at all on intuitive eating, please hit the comment section below. Give me a follow on Instagram if you haven't done so already. And if you like these particular videos, then drop a comment below. I am a coach at the end of the day, an online coach, and have been for the last 10 years. So any topics or issues, do drop me a message. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you very soon. Thank you, good night. Much love.